Every country owes someone. Every bank owes someone else. But what if I told you the system that keeps the global economy alive was never designed to be sustainable? What if behind every loan, every bailout, every stimulus, there's an invisible architecture, a web of promises so complex that even central bankers can't see its true size anymore? And here's the real twist. The modern world runs on a debt system that no one ever voted for, no one truly understands, and no one can fully escape. This is the story of how global debt became the secret operating system of our civilization, and how a single hidden decision made nearly a century ago changed the fate of nations. Part 1. The Origins. When Money Stopped Being Real. 1 to 30 for Ryu. B-roll. Black and white footage of 1930s factories, Great Depression breadlines, gold coins. The year is 1933. The Great Depression has shattered the global economy. Banks are failing, currencies collapsing, and ordinary people are losing everything. Governments are desperate, so they begin an experiment. They detach money from gold, piece by piece. In the U.S., President Franklin D. Roosevelt signs Executive Order 6102, making it illegal for citizens to own gold. Overnight, paper money stops being a claim to something real and becomes something else entirely. A claim backed by trust, the government's word. Other nations follow. The gold standard, the anchor that limited how much money could be printed, starts to erode. And this change sets off a quiet revolution. If money is no longer real, then debt can be infinite. Part 2. The Rise. How debt became the engine. 4. House. 7. B-roll. 1950s reconstruction, factories, post-war cities, early computers, stock exchanges. After World War II, the world is rebuilt on borrowed money. The 1944 Bretton Woods Agreement creates a new financial order. The US dollar becomes the global reserve currency, backed by gold. Or at least that's the story. But here's the catch. Most of the world's gold is in American vaults, and the rest of the world begins accumulating dollars, not gold. To keep global trade moving, countries lend to each other in dollars, borrow in dollars, and store their reserves in, you guessed it, U.S. Treasury bonds, the world's safest form of debt. Debt becomes money, and money becomes debt. As long as everyone believes in the system, it works. But behind the scenes, a dangerous loop forms. To grow the economy, you must create credit. To pay credit, you must grow the economy. A machine that can never stop without crashing. Part 3. The breaking point. When the promise snapped. 7 pound, 10 pound. B-roll. 1960s protests. Nixon on TV. Oil fields. Inflation charts. By the late 1960s, the illusion begins to crack. European nations start demanding gold for their dollars, and the U.S. realizes it can't deliver. There's simply not enough gold left to back all the paper promises it made. So, in August 1971, President Richard Nixon goes on national television and quietly ends the gold standard altogether. The world's currencies, all of them, become floating symbols of faith. The value of money now depends on confidence, and the central banks, armed with the power to create infinite credit, become the new architects of the global economy. This is the true birth of the debt-based world order. Interest rates become the invisible lever that controls nations. Booms and busts are no longer natural cycles. They are engineered outcomes. And every time the system shakes, 1987, 1997, 2008, The solution is always the same. Create more debt to cover the old debt. Part 4. The fallout, invisible chains, 13 reads. B-roll, IMF meetings, protest footage, modern cities, stock tickers, empty factories. By the 1980s, global debt passes $10 trillion. By 2000, it's $60 trillion. By 2025, at US, over $300 trillion, nearly 4 times the size of the world's total economic output. Debt isn't just an economic tool anymore. It's a weapon. Nations borrow to survive. Corporations borrow to grow. Families borrow just to live. But here's the irony. Every dollar of debt someone owes is a dollar of wealth someone else holds. And the higher the debt, the richer the lenders become. Institutions like the IMF and World Bank emerge as global enforcers, lending money to developing nations with strings attached. Privatization, austerity, deregulation. It's called reform. But for many countries, it feels more like financial colonization. Meanwhile, Wall Street engineers a new breed of synthetic debt, derivatives, mortgage-backed securities, credit swaps, turning risk itself into a commodity. By 2008, this invisible mountain collapses under its own weight. The financial crisis wipes out $15 trillion in global wealth. Yet the system doesn't reform. It doubles down. Central banks print trillions in new money to save the same institutions that caused the collapse, and debt soars higher than ever before. Part 5. The failed fixes. How solutions made it worse. 1316. B-roll. Modern banks. Digital currencies. Government hearings. Bitcoin mining rigs. Every economic crisis since 2008 has followed the same playbook. Lower interest rates. Print more money. Encourage more borrowing. It's like treating a drug addiction with higher doses. The world becomes addicted to cheap debt. Governments issue bonds they can never repay. Corporations use borrowed money to buy back their own stock. Consumers live on credit cards and student loans. And when inflation finally hits, central banks raise interest rates, triggering new crises. Every fix creates the next failure. Even the rise of cryptocurrencies and digital assets is part of this story. They were not outside the system. They were responses to a system people no longer trust. Part 6. Modern parallels. The system is repeating itself. 16 once, 19 once. B-roll, global inflation, housing markets, protests, AI stock tickers, BRICS meetings. The same patterns keep emerging, only faster. The 2020 pandemic saw the largest money creation event in human history. Over 17 trillion printed in less than 2 years. Now, global debt has crossed $315 trillion, about $39,000 for every person on Earth. And yet, most people have no idea who this money is owed to, or how it will ever be repaid. Nations like China and the US play a high-stakes game of financial chess, each holding the other's debt, neither able to afford collapse. Emerging economies sink deeper into default, and digital currencies, from Bitcoin to central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, are being framed as the next solution. But here's the uncomfortable truth. A digital currency doesn't solve debt. It just makes it programmable. The architecture remains, only the walls change. Part 7. Lessons, Warnings, and the Unknown Future, 19 Soundings 21 Syrian. B-roll. Slow shots of people using cash, markets, families, clocks ticking. So, what can we learn from this hidden architecture of global debt? Lesson 1. Infinite growth on finite resources is a mathematical illusion. Every system built on perpetual expansion must eventually collapse or reinvent itself. Lesson 2. Debt is not just financial, it's political. Who controls the flow of credit controls the fate of nations. Lesson 3. Transparency is the first casualty of complexity. When systems become too complex for even their architects to understand, power hides in the fog. We are living in a time when the numbers no longer make sense, where the system must expand to survive, even as it consumes the stability it was built to protect. The question isn't if it will break, but what will replace it when it does. Outro. Call to action. 21 tour. 22 B-roll. Quiet piano music. Globes slowly rotating. Data streams fading into black. The hidden architecture of global debt was never meant to be seen, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Now the real question becomes, how do we build a system that serves people, not promises? If this story opened your eyes, share it. Because the more people understand how the world really works, the harder it becomes for a few to control the many. Subscribe, because in the next episode, we'll go deeper into the digital debt trap already being built around you. Music fades out. Black screen with title, The Hidden Architecture of Global Debt, the System Behind the System.